quería preguntar lo de las series de Workroomfilms, ¿qué títulos o qué países tienes en mente?
Well, the next one is going to be, it's the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and I'm going to look at the wallpaper. I'm doing it with a Montreal poet who speaks French, and it's just, the wallpaper is insane in that movie, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe,
not only the wallpaper.
Maybe it might, be the wallpaper with poetry. Just the way we live. I don't know. I'm trying to be very playful with them. They're very, they are collaborations both with the film and then with the poets, and it's a way to really look at something I love and be pretty diverse. I also have a Chinese one, Hao Xiaoxian. I bought some DVDs, a set when I was in China, and some of them are translated correctly, and some of them are translated extraordinarily strangely. So, of course, that's the one I'm looking at. I should add, though, Mirror World was originally created, it certainly can be seen solo like this, but it was created for an installation, a 3-part installation that I did at Harvard, and that's up right now in Rome, just coming down this week at Santo Spiritu. And it's a 3-part piece that's like a secular altar piece, in that Mirror World is big and larger, and then it's framed by 2 black and white melodramas that kind of parallel. And of course in Mirror World I'm talking about subject, object, Hollywood, Bollywood, prince and peasant. The characters, whether you know it or not, doesn't really matter, but they change roles. And I think that leads pretty directly into Ligatures, which I'm considering one of my foreign films, even though it's not quite a foreign film, but the text is there, which is really about what is the object of your desire. And for me, it's like a little perverted history of sexuality, where you're looking at women who are actually prostitutes. It's photos from New Orleans at the turn of the century, and there's a kind of vulnerability and strangeness, vulnerability to their nudeness, and then those scratching out is so violent, it seems to me. It's like what we do to or what the world does to women, perhaps it's the object of their affections. And then I really wanted to go to transsexuals because A, I think they're beautiful, B, they express the same vulnerability, and they really question how we create the object of desire. Because certainly there's a place where what's feminine, what's masculine begins to be questioned. I think particularly in that last young woman is quite extraordinary. And I think her laugh is what I want you to be left with, is this kind of, the joke's on us, or maybe, like cinema in general, it's in, the object of your desire is your projection. So we sit in a place looking at projections, and it projects back to us what we ourselves are desiring. And when they were discovered, either the person who was his landlord or the prostitutes themselves, somebody scratched out some of those pictures. And there's a kind of double violence. And there's also that, in even the aging process, as the images decay, there's a kind of, I guess that's a different kind of violence. That's a kind of soft violence, perhaps. So we don't know the full story of it, but I was kind of, basically that one, well, they do all start with poetry, really, with a sense of poetry. My poet friend had done these love poems from the web, and I said, well, let's do something with them. And so she gave me pages and pages and pages, and I would just pick a word or two from each page and place it. And I was trying to, and again, maybe it's hard unless you know English, to see how those words, darkling, and she's masked. So it's really not darkening, and it's not darking, it's darkling, which has this kind of...
Yes, they're almost impossible to translate.
Yes, I think so too.
Right.
Well, in a way, Futures Behind You is an interesting mix. I mean, in a way, okay, first off, I've always been impure in my art, okay? So I wasn't going to just say, oh, I'm only a filmmaker. I actually had done video in the early 70s as well, or the mid-70s. So, I mean, you know, I play with images. I tell stories with images. So I'll use whatever medium I can. And the medium does change what you're doing. I have films, 60mm films from 2000 and 2002, and I'm shooting now. So things go back and forth for me. Futures Behind You is interesting because I actually had the original and I made an internegative, thinking I was going to edit it in film. And in the end, I edited it in digital. Digital is an optical printer as well as an edit machine. And optical printing, you can repeat things, you can slow them down. And so it really gives you another tool to play with stuff that I had worked with optical printing, but it's much more, you know, it's very slow. You do it, you don't know what the results are. With Final Cut, I can check it, I can try it. I think I'm as precise with Final Cut or with digital as I am with film, but it's a very different kind of experience. It's not sculptural in the same way. When I was doing film, I felt it's very sculptural. With digital, it's more like, it's printing. The Final Cut feels like you could go behind it more. Avid seems even more surface. So, yes, I feel like I'm still continuing looking at the history of cinema and doing kind of interruptive narratives, and even, I mean, in a way, is The Future Behind You, it's a narrative and a documentary. The language of film isn't settled. I couldn't keep doing the same thing I had done. So I had to keep playing and finding new resources. But I feel like there is there is an arc, there is a relationship between the work. I think it's about rhythm, holding it together. It's about a multiplicity. And it's about maybe deranging our senses into reality. Although I was looking at the work and I was thinking, you know, you could think if this is Abby's reality, you know, how does she pay her bills? But that's okay. What's more important is the imagination, the deal. I'm not comfortable with ordinary narrative now. I don't read, you know, that much of, I mean, you know, I love films, so, you know, I love films. But, you know, the classic, you know, Joe says hi, shot, Susie says no. I mean, back forth shot with people. I mean, if you've ever watched TV with the sound off, it's boring. You know, I mean, it's totally boring. Well, this one is you know, nothing's happening. It's just a shot of a person, a shot of a person, a shot of a person, a shot of a person. And that's 90% of what we see in films. So I'm trying to find a way to be different. And yes, I'm uncomfortable with cinema narrative because it's stuck in 1898. You know, it's based on late 19th century melodrama. You go to a museum and the audience can look at Joseph Boy's felt and fat and, you know, skewed little drawings, and they all go, yes, that's fine. And then they look at a film that might have the same kind of skewing, and they're like, no, where's my story? Where's my logic? Where's my linearity? I feel like film is like the last bastion of, you know, amazingly audience rebellion, or audience, it's not as interesting as rebellion, audience passivity, right? You know, what does Stanley Cavell say? You know, you're in the dark, you're passive, you sit down. I've even had students in classes say, but I want to just be entertained, I want fun. Well, you know, you read a book, you go to the museum to both be entertained and have your mind clicking. That's a real entertainment, right? It's just like the film. Look, if in early 20th century we have the theory of relativity, we have the theory of uncertainty, the real world is not linear. The real world is not completely present at all times the way you see on TV. And she said, if audiences are still uncomfortable with asymmetry and multiple characters and prismatic knowledge, then we as artists still have something to do.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you all.